Ahoj úžasňáci, já vás srdečně vítám u dalšího podcastu. Tentokrát po dlouhé době zase vyprávění o mojí dovolené v angličtině. Takže pokud ještě nejste dostatečně pokročilí na to, abyste mohli podcast poslouchat pouze bez titulků, tak v angličtině jak o něm budu mluvit, tak vám doporučuji, pokud to ještě neděláte, se koukat na YouTube, kde je totiž možnost zapnout si dvojazyčné titulky. Jak na to najdete v popisku tohoto videa. Takže pokud to nevíte, tak se prvně podívejte na ten návod, ať si tento podcast můžete patřičně užít a trénovat tak své poslechové dovednosti, řekněme v mezistupních, protože ten nejvyšší stupeň, až to budete zvládat úplně bez titulku, tak pro někoho třeba může být ještě vzdálený, tak aby všichni měli stejnou příležitost. Ale teď už konec okecávání a pojďme rovnou na to. First of all, I would like to start with a disclaimer. It's been a month since I came back from the holiday, and let me tell you, I have been postponing recording this podcast for this whole month. Trust me, it had been on my to-do list till today, every day, and I postponed it to the day after, the day after, the day after, and now it's 8:40 p.m., which is basically like midnight for me, and I have 20 minutes till I go to the bed, and I was like, Eliška, you can't postpone it for another day because this is getting ridiculous. And I thought that like the hardest part is getting started, so I was like, well, I do have only 20 minutes. That's not enough for the full episode, but I could at least record a part of it and finally get it over with. So here we are. I'm sorry if I'm not as fluent as I'd like to be because it's really late and I feel like my language abilities decrease by an hour in the afternoon, and they are really miserable after 8 p.m., which is just now. But I hope you'll enjoy it regardless. So, my holiday. Let's start with the day one. To be honest, I don't remember it as well as I would like to because, as I said, it's been a month. But I have made very thorough notes that are gonna help me. And, so the day of our departure was, I believe, the 11th of September. And our plane was leaving at 2 p.m. So we had quite a lot of time in the morning to get everything nice and ready and leave. And a little bit of a background before that 11th of September, I was running one of my most important campaigns. I always do a campaign in January and in September, usually at the start of it. And it was a 3-day long event. And let me tell you, it had been so much work, and I was totally snowed under, and the night before I didn't even sleep really well because I had finished the event, but that didn't mean that I wasn't overworked already and that there was still a lot of work to be done. And on top of that, our friend that actually went to Spain with us, he called us and we bought tickets to Paris. So it had been a long discussion till the moment we actually bought the tickets. So therefore I went to sleep like past midnight, which is crazy for me because, I need my sleep, and I always wake up super early, especially when I'm nervous, and I am always a little bit nervous before going on holiday. So I woke up really early to get a head start on my work, since I knew that once we get on the plane, there won't be any time to finish the work. So I had started packing like 5 days before the day. I was like, yeah, I had a list of things that I really didn't want to forget, and I was really thorough with it. I made sure I had all my components of my perfect skincare for the morning and for the night, and like these kinds of things. I had a list of those, and when we were actually leaving and putting our suitcases in the car, by the way, we had a backpack and cabin luggage, like a carry-on suitcase, like the small one. So we were putting our luggage into the car, and I was asking myself like, do I have everything? Yes, I do have my phone and I do have my laptop. Good. In that case, I do have everything. You probably know where I'm going with the story, right? Because we live in Pilsen, and when we arrived at the parking lot, because I booked a special parking lot, you know, it's like 10 minutes away from the airport, and they pick you up then. They drive you to the airport and then they pick you up when you come back. And when we drove through the gate to the parking lot, I realized that I had forgotten my wallet, and therefore I had forgotten my ID card and my passport, because Gibraltar, you need a passport to get to Gibraltar, and I lost it in that moment. I thought that, well, there is no way we could get on the plane in time. Like, there was no way. We were like an hour and a half away from the airport if we had decided to drive back to Pilsen to the flat to get my wallet and stuff. So for like a minute, I totally panicked. I started crying because this actually had not been the first time I had forgotten my wallet and my ID, and I was so angry with myself, like how I was constantly asking myself, like, why are you so stupid? It's impossible, like that, no one's gonna believe you. This always only happens to you, Alice. And like my husband, he is the best man ever. He is always extremely patient with me. He never loses his temper. He's always calm, and he's ready to find a solution. So he said, like, call your parents. So I called my parents. At this point, it was 12:30, I believe, and the scheduled departure was 2 p.m. So we had like an hour and a half to get to the airport, not only to the airport, but also to the gate. So we called my parents, and, you know, we had gotten into a fight a few days ago. So let me tell you, it had been hard to call them at that point, but well, I didn't have any other choice, and still they're my parents. I know they always have my best interest at heart. So I asked them, like, please, can you get to my flat, get my wallet, get our passports, because my husband had also forgotten his passport. But like he still had his ID on, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like we wouldn't be able to go to Gibraltar, but at least we would have made it to Spain, you know. But like, well, when I called my mom, I was like, yeah, you might as well take the František's passport as well. So she did that. They actually drove in our direction to Prague. We drove in their direction to Pilsen, and we met halfway and at a gas station, and they gave us the wallet and the passports, and again we drove back to the parking lot. We got into the car, they drove us to the airport, and we still had like, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes to get to the gate. So I was like, to be honest, I was still stressed out. I still wanted to rush my husband to move faster because he was walking so slowly. Anyway, we got onto the plane. The flight was really nice. I think that this felt like the shortest flight of my life, even though it was not, but yeah, I had a lot of fun. I was reading a book, and then we were watching this amazing movie. I don't remember. Yeah, How to Find a Killer or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't remember. So when we arrived at the airport, our friend Vašek picked us up and we went to a car rental office, and we were supposed to pick up our cars. We were there as two groups of friends, like mainly a family. You know, there was my husband, me, our friend Vladimir, and our friend Marek. Like, we were the group number one, and the other group, it was our friend Vašek and Janča, their son Matejášek, a 2-year-old, and their parents Jana and Karel. So we were actually getting 2 cars, and Vladimir is a huge fan of sports cars. I'm the exact opposite. I hate sports cars, but he persuaded me that there would be enough space in the Mustang. And let me tell you, there was not enough space. To be honest, I couldn't fit onto the back seats. Generally, like, Mustangs and sports cars mainly are made for 2 people maximum, and the back seats are usually like an emergency seat, like if it's inevitable that you have to drive somebody somewhere for a short distance or something, but it's definitely not suitable for long transfers, and we had planned a lot of transfers, let me tell you. So and another disclaimer, if you don't know that about me, I'm the type of person that gets stressed out extremely easily, and I have no problem having multiple breakdowns a day. I'm a huge creature of habits. I love planning. I love having things under control. I need to know what's gonna happen next. I would say I'm possibly even a bit autistic. And I'm not even kidding. Unfortunately, I wish I were. But so that's gonna explain a lot of situations and things that were going on in my head. And so we got into the cars. Luckily, I could drive with Vašek. They got Mercedes Veto or something like that, and it was a car for 9 people, and there were 5, you know, so they had like 4 extra seats. So that meant that I basically didn't have to drive in the Mustang that often. And we got to our accommodation, and again, I don't want to go into a lot of details, but it was a really nice room. I really don't want to complain. It was a beautiful room, but my expectations were that we're gonna like be in a villa and that we're gonna be there together as these 2 groups, and we're gonna have a kitchen where we can cook a meal or something simple. And I thought that there would be something like a living room where we would spend time together, and you know, but this accommodation was that you actually just got a room and a bathroom, and that was it. There was no other room you could hang out in, and that was a problem for me because, first of all, I was really looking forward to like playing games with everybody and meeting up with everybody, and I was actually looking forward to, I don't know, cooking some simple dishes or so. Like I am not the type of person that would actually like to go out for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. Like, I love to eat out, but let's say once a day when I'm on holiday, not more. So that was a huge disappointment, and the like main thing was that I always wake up at like 6 a.m. and my husband wakes up at like 8, 9 a.m., especially when on holiday, and I already knew that this was gonna be a problem because I would have to be like extremely silent since we were sharing a room naturally, but it was also impossible because I needed light to get ready and to work. I needed to make coffee in the morning because, you know, I cannot really like wake up and properly without having my daily dose of caffeine, and I didn't want to wake him up, but there was no other choice. Like, I literally had to make the coffee when he was sleeping, poor guy, like literally next to his head. The coffee machine was like this whole morning, and I was like, I'm so sorry, baby, but well, that was that. And we arrived at the accommodation really late. It was like 9:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. is the time when I'm like, if I'm not sleeping at this moment, I'm always at least in bed and I'm getting ready to fall asleep, or at least I'm on the verge of falling asleep, And then Vladimir was like, yeah, let's go downtown to Malaga, let's meet up with the other half of the group, because they were staying elsewhere. And yeah, let's have a party or something like that, like let's go out for dinner. It's like, no, I just really want to, and like my expectation was that we would stay in our room, we would get a good night's rest, and we would possibly watch a movie with my husband and just like fall asleep and sleep really well, because I knew that all the other days were gonna be really difficult, and they were, but I really didn't expect this to happen. So luckily I persuaded everyone if they could at least take me to a shop and get something for dinners, since I was going to stay at home in our room, and something for breakfast. So we all went to the shop, we came back, and then everybody left, and I stayed alone in that room, and I felt so sad, because there were like, I was totally stressed out from the whole day, and like I felt like nothing is happening the way I wanted to, and yeah, like I was really sad, and I couldn't fall asleep, so I stayed awake and I was working like till midnight. And then I closed the laptop and I told myself like, Eliška, now you really have to go to bed and at least try falling asleep, because if you don't fall asleep anytime soon, you're gonna be a zombie tomorrow. So I tried to fall asleep, but I sent a few depressed voice messages to my best friends and I like talked myself to sleep alone. I'm gonna take a short break because it's already 9 p.m. and I see that I've been talking for 20 minutes. That's crazy. Well, I have only talked about day 1 and we were there for 8 days, guys. So I'm gonna have to make it shorter tomorrow. So wish me the best of luck, and well, you will hear me in another second. So well, bye for now and hello again. Let's continue with day 2. As I already mentioned, last night I went to bed really late and I had real trouble falling asleep, so I woke up really tired, but I had to wake up since I knew I needed to get a lot of work done. And I think I had an alarm for 6 a.m. and I think I woke up maybe at like 5:40 even. So I got up, I woke my husband up by making the loudest coffee ever, and then he just continued sleeping and I sat at a desk and I was working until everybody woke up, which was like super late, and it was like that every day. It was super frustrating for me because I'm the type of person that would like to leave and go out for adventure in the morning, let's say, or at least like 10 a.m. the latest, but it was the opposite with this group of people. We would leave the accommodation at like midday, which is super late for most people, for me as well, but that's how it was. I couldn't do anything about it. And another problem was that I was constantly hungry throughout this whole holiday, and I don't know how about you, but when I'm hungry I'm not in the best mood. And since I woke up always really early at like 6 a.m. and everybody else woke up at like 10 a.m., then we would eat breakfasts at different times. So for example, I had my breakfast at like 7 or 8 a.m. and everybody had it at like 10 or 11 a.m. So of course they weren't hungry at 12, but I was already starving by 12 p.m. and we would normally eat lunches at around 2 or 3 p.m. or even later, and that was hard for me. So day 2 was no exception. I was either starving or I was totally stuffed, because when I finally got a chance to eat, I would overeat, and it was this vicious cycle. But I'm not complaining, I'm just describing it as it was. And on day 2, we left at like 12 p.m. as I mentioned, and we went to Gibraltar. And actually we were traveling a lot, so we were changing accommodation every few days, and this time, like day 1, we only stayed in Malaga for the first night, and then we moved to the south. And as I said, we went to Gibraltar. We went by Mustang. Luckily I was driving shotgun, so I had at least some room for my body in the seat, even though it wasn't the best. And the journey there took us like 2 hours, so it wasn't a short journey. The weather wasn't nice, let me tell you. It was super cloudy and it seemed like it was going to rain any minute. And when we arrived in Gibraltar, we immediately went to a restaurant. It was like 3 p.m. and I was starving. And back then, at our accommodation, I was talking to my friend Vláďa, and I somehow mentioned I've never had fish and chips in my entire life, and he was like, no way, you've got to try it. And since we were headed to Gibraltar, British colony, he was like, yeah, we have to go to a traditional British restaurant and we are all gonna have fish and chips. So I agreed, because I was like, yeah, like this is a great opportunity to try British traditional food and enjoy it. And so we went to this restaurant. It was actually, there was the mistake, because we went to the first restaurant that we saw. We didn't check any Google reviews or anything. We just went there, and let me tell you, it was a disaster. Like, everybody said that this was the worst fish and chips of their life. I would probably have to agree. I was so hungry that I just devoured it, and I didn't really mind. It had no taste whatsoever. I just used a lot of salt and ketchup and like barbecue sauce and all of that to make it edible. So this was our first fuck up of the day. First and definitely not the last. And if you've never been to Gibraltar and you don't know how it works, there is this huge hill. You can go there by a cable car, and there are a lot of monkeys, and there should be a great viewpoint where you can see both like Spain and Africa. And I'm not a huge fan of these places. Like, if it was possible to go for a long walk there, then yes, I would probably go, but I was really like put off by the monkeys. I didn't really want the monkeys to be around me, and I know they're quite aggressive and quite spoiled at the same time, so I didn't feel comfortable going there. And second of all, I knew it would take forever to go there. We would just go there by the cable car, we would take a picture of the view, we would have a coffee, and we would just chill out and then go down. And I really wanted to like go and explore, and you know, I'm this type of tourist. I don't necessarily need to go to the most famous sites and have the most popular experiences. I just like to do whatever I feel like doing at that moment. And at that moment, I really wanted to have a nice romantic walk with my husband. So we left the group and we were walking around Gibraltar for like 2 or 3 hours. And it was a really, really nice walk. So I highly recommend it. We had a nice cup of coffee. We talked a lot. And at that moment, I was really happy. Then we left Gibraltar in the evening. It was getting super late again. It was like 8 p.m. and I thought that our next accommodation should be somewhere close to Gibraltar. It wasn't. We drove for another like 90 minutes and it was like a total ghost town or like ghost region because there were literally no people. And it was pretty scary. We were actually trying to find our villa, which was impossible because we got really like weird and puzzled instructions. So we spent so much time looking for it. There was a lot of stressful situations that I don't want to explain to you because this podcast would have 3 hours. I'm not even kidding. So I'm just gonna go and tell you like it was stressful, it was disastrous, I felt like shit, and at that moment I was really losing it again, and I was in the mindset of like, I want to go home, I don't want to continue like experiencing such holiday, this is not at all what I imagined. And when we finally found the villa, after all the struggles and arguments and we were really hungry, so we decided to go to a restaurant, but we found out that there is no restaurant open, and like the closest restaurant we could find on a map that was actually opened was 50 minutes away, but we didn't have enough gas, so we needed to find a gas station, which was also a challenge since it was a ghost region and nobody was there. And this is the problem, like when you travel off season, it's great because there are few tourists, but the downside is that because of the lack of tourists, nobody is there as well. So no shops are opened, no gas stations, no restaurants, everything is closed. So we decided to drive to a certain gas station that was like 20 minutes away from us, and we were praying it would be opened. And luckily on our way there we found a shop, El Dia, one of the most typical supermarkets, like a really small supermarket, but at least they had some food. So my husband and I went shopping, and Marek and Vláďa drove to the gas station, and then we returned to our accommodation, which was terrible. I was actually looking forward to this accommodation the most because in the pictures it looked marvelous, and I thought that this would be the accommodation, like the most insta-friendly accommodation that I would just fall in love with, and it was terrible. It was cold. Actually, all of the accommodations were cold because the Spanish don't have heatings. They don't need heatings, but like for me, outside it was like 15 to 20 degrees during the day, but at night it was really cold. It was like below 10 degrees Celsius. So that was frustrating. And also there were struggles that I didn't really want to share with you in this podcast. Let's just wrap day 2 up by saying that we spent the rest of the night, even like until 2 or 3 a.m., playing cards in like a super small kitchen, actually the smallest kitchen I have ever seen, and it was so much fun. So this probably must have been the highlight of the day, even though most of the day was pretty disastrous. Then we have day 3. I had the worst night's sleep ever because I was constantly cold, I was constantly waking up, and as I said, I went to bed at like 2 or 3 a.m. and I woke up at 6 a.m. So I got like 3 solid hours of sleep, which is disasters for me, but I needed to wake up because I needed to do some work. That was the main struggle of this holiday, because since I've had just this really successful campaign, I had to do a lot of like work, a lot of follow-up with the new students and so on. So that was hard, but again, I was super grateful that the campaign was so successful and it was the desired outcome. Actually, I would be more depressed if I didn't have any work, if you know what I mean. So I spent the morning working, and then everybody woke up, we had breakfast, we talked, and again we left the accommodation super late at like 12 or 1 p.m. almost. And this time the boys persuaded me to drive the Mustang. And let me tell you, I think I'm an excellent driver. I love driving, and normally when I'm on holiday with somebody, I am always the main driver. And even last time when we went with my husband and Vladia on holiday, I was the only person who was driving the whole time. So like I have experience with driving a lot, but I have never driven a sports car, and it's totally different. And I didn't really want to drive it because I'm not a fan, and I didn't feel comfortable because my husband was describing it that driving a Mustang, like a sports car of this kind, is like constantly being on ice. And I'm like, God, do you really think I want to drive a car that feels like you're driving on ice? But everybody was like, yeah, you need to have this experience, just do it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. But it was nowhere near enjoyable. Like at least the first 20 minutes I was getting used to the car, and like it didn't feel that different. But then I got more confident and I wanted to drive faster. And generally I hate overtaking in any country, in any car, and especially in a car that I don't really know how to drive and that's super unstable. But there was this car who was driving really slowly, and I was getting frustrated by it. So I was like, yeah, I have to overtake it. And I hit the pedal, and the car is like extremely strong and fast. But as I was overtaking it, I like quite lost control of the wheel, and I got really scared. Everybody got scared in the car. So like I managed, like nothing happened, but after a few minutes I had to stop, and I was like, no, I don't want to drive this car anymore. I'm really afraid. I hate it. So we switched with Vladimir, and the only person I trust when driving is my husband, because generally I hate it when somebody else drives. I just don't feel safe. And Vladimir, he's a fan of sports cars, and he's a fan of motorbikes, and I think, in my opinion, he's a crazy driver, and I really didn't feel comfortable. And on top of that, they persuaded me to take a nicotine chewing gum. I've never had it before, and I was really hungry. It was literally on an empty stomach, and everybody was like, take it, nothing is gonna happen to you, you're just gonna have a lot of energy. And when they said it would give me a lot of energy, I was like, yeah, okay, so I'm gonna take it. Because as I already mentioned, I was totally worn out since I didn't sleep the night before. So I took the gum, and after a few chews, I started feeling dizzy and nauseous. Like I thought I was gonna throw up any minute. I felt so terrible. Like I don't even remember the last time I felt as terrible as I felt when I was chewing this nicotine gum. This like terrible feeling lasted for like 30 minutes, and the only thing that was intensifying the terrible nauseous feeling was Vladimir driving like crazy. So yeah, I'm still shocked that I managed not to throw up. When we stopped in Tarifa, which was our destination for the day, I opened the door of the Mustang and I actually fell out of the car because I got so dizzy. And then I needed to like just breathe for a few minutes, take in some fresh air, and then I was okay. But it was one of the worst experiences of my life, and I'm not gonna have a nicotine gum ever again. In fact, I'm never ever gonna take anything containing nicotine. No need for that. Tarifa is a nice city. Again, I would highly recommend it to explore it. I think there's the southeast point of Spain or something. Unfortunately, it was closed due to strong winds, so we couldn't go there really, but I didn't mind that much. I was again super hungry. We finally found a quite good looking restaurant at like 3 p.m. and we made the same mistake as the day before. We didn't check any Google reviews, we just went there because it looked nice from the outside. But it was actually terrible. First of all, we sat outside and I was freezing. So I already told you that I was basically either starved or stuffed the whole holiday, and on top of that I was constantly frozen. I was so cold all the time, and this was the case. So we spent like an hour waiting for our paella. Paella was another food that I had never tried before, and I wanted to be spontaneous and try out new foods because I normally order things that I'm used to eating all the time, and then I feel that I'm too conservative and I should be more adventurous and so on. So this holiday I decided to be adventurous, and it was a mistake because the paella was terrible. It was, it was really terrible. I'm a huge fan of seafood, and let me tell you, there was one shrimp and that was it. It was ridiculous. And then we again took a walk around Tarifa and we drove to Sevilla, which was our next destination. And we were staying in a nice flat. This time all of us were staying in one accommodation, this one huge flat. And it was quite alright, but there was a huge struggle again. The landlord wasn't even there, like the lady who was renting the apartment via Airbnb. She sent her sister, who was really nice, but she didn't know anything. So we had a lot of questions. She somehow managed to answer them, but there was one room and the air conditioning in that room wasn't working. And not like we needed air conditioning, but the air conditioning was also working as a heater. And without the heaters, again, it was so cold, it would be like 10 degrees in that apartment, and you definitely don't want to be staying and sleeping somewhere where there's only 10 degrees, especially not with a baby, because Matyášek is only 2 years old. And for some reason, everybody decided that I'm gonna be the person to solve it. So everybody was already unpacking and eating their dinner. I was starving, but I was just like constantly talking to this sister who had no idea how air conditioning works, and I have air conditioner with a heater at home, so I know how it works. And it didn't work, and she was constantly trying to persuade me that it should work and it was gonna work, but no, it didn't need more time, as she was saying. It was broken. So after another 40 minutes of the most ridiculous phone calls and everything, they finally somebody finally noticed that I was losing it already, and they asked me, Eliška, what's going on? And I lost it. I said, I cannot do this anymore. It's not even my room. Can somebody please finish it? And I just left to the kitchen. I made myself dinner and I was like, please don't talk to me, I'm losing it again. So that was basically the end of day 3. There were other things that didn't go according to the plan, but again, if I were to tell you everything that didn't go according to the plan, or if I were to tell you about all the little fuck-ups that had happened during the day, the podcast would have 6 hours. Let's go with 6 hours because I think that's realistic. Day 4 changed everything for me. As you could probably tell, I had not been enjoying the holiday until the morning of day 4, I could say, and actually it was so bad for me that I actually wanted to go home at that point, and I was like basically crying to my best friend's voice messages that it is the worst and I want to go home. And I know it may sound dramatic now, but I have not told you all the fuck-ups that had happened, and another thing, I am really sensitive. I am especially really sensitive to my daily routine. Like, I cannot be happy unless I sleep well, unless I eat well, unless I know what's ahead of me. I really cannot enjoy spontaneous trips, and well, I could enjoy being spontaneous if it was just up to me and my husband, let's say, but since there was a whole group of us, it wasn't possible to be selfish and to do whatever I wanted at that moment. So, well, it was really hard for me to digest, but as I said, like day 4, I started enjoying it, and from that point, I really loved the holiday. If I could erase the first 3 days, I would, but well, at least I have a lot of good stories to tell. So let's now dive into day 4, which we spent in Sevilla. If you ever travel to Spain, you've got to visit this beautiful town. I think that this is one of my top 5 destinations in the whole world. It's a big city. We unfortunately had only 1 day there, so we didn't have enough time to explore everything, but I fell in love with it. If you want, you can check some photos of it, or on my Instagram stories, I posted a few pictures and videos from this whole trip. It is saved there, so you can still watch it even if you haven't watched it yet at the day I posted it. And we spent this day with Vašek and Jana and little Matyášek, and you know, children always loved me for some reason, and I love children, to be honest, so we became besties with Matyášek. So I spent most of the time just like holding his hand and answering all his questions, because he was constantly asking, co to je? Co to je? Co to je? So I think I could expand my Czech vocabulary even, because when he asked me for the 5th time what something was, and he was constantly pointing at the same thing, I really had to use a lot of creativity. And we had an amazing lunch. Finally, again, this was the first good food I had on day 4, and it was only because we finally made the decision based on reviews on Google. So if you travel somewhere and you don't check Google reviews, you're playing with fire, and I would highly recommend you to only go to places where the rating is really high. In the evening, we got back home, and I spent some time working as usual, and then we played tons of games, basically until 2 or 3 a.m. and I loved it. We laughed so hard. If you've never played these 2 games, you've gotta, like, it's krycí jména and karty proti lidskosti. If you are a group of people, of at least 4 people, then you have to play these 2. I loved it, and I would play it anytime. Actually, this weekend I was at my parents' weekend house and we played it and we had fun, even though it was my parents, which I was actually surprised by, but it only shows that it's basically suitable for any age group. Besides children, of course, please don't play it with children. That wouldn't be a good idea. On day 5, we had another transfer to another city, which was Malaga. You know, on day 1, we actually slept in Malaga, but we didn't explore the city. So now when we transferred there on day 5, we got there at like 1 p.m, so still quite early, and my husband and I decided to go for a solo day to Malaga. Everybody else went to a different location, and it was again a very beautiful city, not as big as Sevilla, and actually I preferred Sevilla, but still it's a really beautiful city, and again I would highly recommend it. We had the best pizza ever, and then we decided to take a walk around. Again, there are some beautiful sites. We went to the most famous, most well-known touristic sites, and then we wanted to get a shisha because I'm a huge fan of shishas, and shisha actually is something that I always crave when I just want to chill out and chill out. But unfortunately, we unless we are in the Czech Republic, we always have the worst shishas, and I wonder if really we are the best at shishas in the Czech Republic and that everywhere else the shishas are terrible. To be honest, I don't know, but it's our experience. So we got the shisha, it was disgusting, we couldn't even smoke it, but at least we had a good coffee. And we went back to our room pretty early at 8 p.m. and we were so worn out because until that day 5 we had only slept for a few hours every night. So this was the first opportunity for us to actually just go to our room, lock the door, and chill out. We spent the whole night watching a TV series called The Boys. By the way, if you've not watched it, you've gotta. It's one of my favorite TV shows, and I was so skeptical about it. Actually, my husband suggested watching it, I don't know, a year ago, and I was constantly postponing it because I was like, no, it seems really weird, I don't want to watch it. But then I ran out of TV shows that I wanted to watch, so I kind of caved in and decided to watch it, and I was so excited about it, and I'm so sorry that we have finished it already, but there is another season coming, so I cannot wait. And actually on day 5, specifically at the night of day 5, I finally had a good night's sleep. I slept for 8 hours, which felt like a miracle, and I woke up so energized for day 6, which turned out to be another solo travel day for my husband and I. And we started the day at midday as always, and we went back to Malaga, to the center, and there is this huge marketplace. It's the most famous marketplace. The marketplace was recommended to us for lunch because they sell a lot of seafood, and there are actually some stalls where you can also order it and eat it at that place. So we decided to have lunch there, and I was so excited about it because I love seafood. So I got a lot of shrimps, a lot of octopuses, a lot of fish and everything, and I was so stuffed afterwards. And actually we expected it to be a cheap version of lunch, but it turned out to be the most expensive lunch we've had there. So if you think that the market is a cheap place to have lunch, you are wrong, just as we were. Yeah, just saying. But after the lunch, we went to a botanical garden. I am not a big fan of botanical gardens. Actually, I try to avoid them as much as possible, but my husband loves them. So again, I caved in. I wanted to make him happy, and I didn't regret it, because there is this huge botanical garden like 10 minutes away from Malaga, and it is huge. So diverse. Like, I highly recommend it. Even if you're not a fan of botanical gardens, the traditional ones, go there, you won't regret it. We spent, let's say, an hour and a half there because we were in a rush. We had bought tickets to a cave where we needed to be at 4 p.m. So we needed to rush through the botanical garden, but if we didn't rush, I think it would take us like 2.5 hours to really explore everything. It was this huge. The cave was amazing as well. I don't really remember the name of the cave, but again, it's like 20 minutes away from Malaga, and it was a unique experience. I expected it to be cold there, but it was actually hot. And yeah, it was so different. I've never really had this type of experience before, and again, I would highly recommend it. And we finished the day off with the yummiest cocktail I've ever had. Actually, I hate alcohol, but that probably changed in Spain because I got used to drinking a few cocktails and a few drinks. And this was one of the best ones I've had. Like, I still dream about it. And there was a spectacular view in the restaurant. Again, I posted it on my Insta story, so you can check it there. And then I spent the rest of the day working, like not really rest of the day because we arrived really late at like 7 or 8 p.m. At our accommodation, I mean. So I spent the rest of the day working, and we were also watching The Boys. And there was one thing that actually ruined my mood for the day, because my foot that I had recently broken was purple, like, but scary purple, and I was in pain. And it seemed like it was a foot of a dead person. Really, it looked that bad. But we found out that we had forgotten to get travel insurance. So I was really stressed out, and I was praying that nothing was gonna happen and then it's gonna be okay, and luckily it was. But well, I knew that from that day on, I wouldn't be able to walk a lot. So on day 7, which was our last full day in Spain, we just went to a nice small town that is like 2 hours away from Malaga, and we had a short walk there. It was raining, so it wasn't really comfortable walking outside anyways. We had a luxurious lunch, again one of the most delicious things I have ever eaten, and that was basically it. And on day 8 there was nothing much to do because I wanted to get a lot of work done. So I decided that I would basically just work the whole day. We packed our suitcases, we went for a short walk around our villa because we weren't really staying in Malaga. We were staying like 30 minutes away from Malaga. And there was sea, so we had a nice walk along the coast, which I really enjoyed. And we basically like said goodbye to this whole holiday, and as I said, packed our suitcases and headed to the airport. We arrived at the gate like 40 minutes before the scheduled departure, so really early, but a minute later or so we found out that the plane is delayed, so delayed by 40 minutes, which actually turned out to be 2 hours and 40 minutes, which was so frustrating because I really hate waiting, and it was already super late. and I knew that we were gonna arrive in Prague at like 11 p.m. and we had to go back to Pilsen, which is like another hour and a half, and I was really tired and I wanted to go to bed early, which didn't happen. We got to bed at like 2 a.m. because when we arrived in Prague and got back to our car, we found out that my car is like totally frozen. There was a thick layer of ice and we spent like 30 minutes trying to get it off the car. So that definitely was not a nice and warm welcome to the Czech Republic, and I immediately missed Spain because during the day there was like 20 degrees and getting back to minus 10 degrees was an unpleasant change, let me tell you. So that's it. That's what I can tell you about my holiday in Spain. I hope you enjoyed this super long and possibly chaotic podcast. Actually, there will be another holiday episode out soon because during Easter I'm going to Paris. So I guess there will be a lot I will be able to share with you. I hope it's not gonna be as crazy as Spain was, but we'll see. So bye for now.
Chcete žít život bez jazykové bariéry a dosáhnout výsledku svých snů? Chcete na vlastní kůži zažít, jaké to je učit se anglicky systematicky, zábavně a vidět pokrok? Chcete se nechat vést profesionálem, který výuku přizpůsobí vašim potřebám, poradí vám, namotivuje vás a dá vám zpětnou vazbu, abyste věděli, co používáte správně a co špatně a mohli se díky tomu posunout? V tom případě jste narazili na toho pravého lektora pro vás. V základu nabízím 2 formy spolupráce. Online klub pro samouky a individuální jazykový mentoring. Jak si vybrat? Já ve výuce kladu obrovský důraz na individualitu. Jinými slovy to znamená, že neexistuje univerzální řešení pro každého, ale že každý by měl následovat takový systém a styl výuky, který bude odpovídat jeho osobnosti, jeho možnostem, ať už časovým nebo finančním, a také jeho cílům. Představím vám tedy tyto 2 formy spolupráce na konkrétních lidech a sami se rozhodněte, jaký popis na vás sedí spíše. Máme zde Kláru a Ivet. Klára se chce zlepšit v angličtině, ale má spoustu dalších povinností. Nemůže se angličtině věnovat naplno, ale ani tak se na ní nechce vykašlat úplně. Nechce nad sebou mít přímou kontrolu lektora a tak velkou zodpovědnost, ale vyhovuje jí komunita samouků, kde získá potřebnou podporu a motivaci. Je poměrně samostatná, ale chybí efektivní plán, struktura a zpětná vazba profesionála, aby věděla, že se posouvá. Pokud jste jako Klára, je pro vás vhodnější online klub pro samouky. A co Iveta? Iveta je ochotná angličtině teď dát maximum, aby dosáhla svého cíle. Najde si i 30 minut každý den. Potřebuje individuální plán přímo jí na míru, aby nestrácela čas a dosáhla svých výsledků co nejrychleji. Skupinová výuka jí moc nevyhovuje. Potřebuje hodně pozornosti, podpory a vedení. Zároveň si na sebe potřebuje tak trošku ušít bič, aby jí to donutilo pracovat a neusnout na vavřínech. Pokud jste jako Iveta, tak individuální jazykový mentoring bude ta správná cesta pro vás. Pokud bych to měla shrnout, tak zásadní rozdíly mezi klubem a individuálním mentoringem jsou v časové náročnosti. Klub vyjde na zhruba 10 minut denně, mentoring ideálně na 30 minut denně, ale záleží tam už na individuální domluvě, protože to je přece jenom individuální jazykový mentoring. Klub, co se týče klubu, tak tam je výuka přizpůsobená skupině. To znamená, nerespektují se v ní potřeby jednotlivců, ale potřeby celé skupiny. Podle zpětné vazby účastníků přizpůsobují program, který je vhodný pro úrovně A2 až B2. To je jinými slovy znamená, že je třeba mít nějaký základy v angličtině, není vhodný pro úplný začátečníky, ale zároveň pokud už teď mluvíte naprosto plynule, máte pokročilou úroveň vyšší než B2, tak ani pro vás není skupinový program vhodný. Individuální jazykový mentoring je na druhou stranu vhodný naprosto pro každého, neboť výukový plán se 100% podřizuje vašim potřebám, koníčkům, preferencím i cílům. Pokud potřebujete vyšperkovat angličtinu kvůli maturitě nebo zkouškám, zaměříme se na ně. Pokud kvůli cestování nebo pracovnímu pohovoru, tak to samé. V klubu pro samouky máte možnost dostávat pravidelně zpětnou vazbu na vaše odpovědi, komentáře, otázky, ale je třeba být samostatný a úkoly dělat ze své vlastní vůle. Nebudu vám stát za zády s bičem. Pomůže vám ale obrovsky to, že dostanete mini úkol na 10 minut každý den a tím pádem pro vás bude jednoduché vytvořit si udržitelný denní návyk. V mentoringu budete mít mou plnou pozornost, budeme prakticky na denní, týdenní bázi v úzkém kontaktu a neustále sledovat váš pokrok a upravovat plán podle vašich potřeb a preferencí. Budeme pracovat s pravidelnými deadliny, abyste angličtinu nemohli jenom tak odložit na dobu neurčitou. Znáte to. A tím pádem dosáhli tak svých cílů. Cenově klub vyjde na $20, což je podle aktuálního kurzu zhruba 600 Kč měsíčně. Individuální jazykový mentoring vyjde na 2500 Kč měsíčně. Aktuálně k dnešnímu datu 14. prosince 2022. Pokud stále nemáte jasno v tom, jakou službu si vybrat, napište mi na e-mail eliska@výukaionline.cz. Já vám to napíšu i do popisku. A zároveň, pokud se chcete přihlásit nebo jen získat více informací, pročíst si recenze mých studentů a podobně, tak stačí rozkliknout také odkaz v popisku videa a tam se dozvíte vše potřebné. A já se na vás budu hrozně moc těšit.